Good morning. Good to have you with us. I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Savannah Sellers. We're going to begin our show this morning at the White House. Top Trump administration officials are coming under intense criticism for discussing those Yemen war plans in a group chat that inadvertently included the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic magazine. His name's Jeffrey Goldberg.
President Trump and his allies are downplaying the leak, saying there was no classified material in those texts. But lawmakers are demanding an investigation into the incident. Some Democrats are calling on the president to fire the officials involved. Among those under pressure is National Security Advisor Mike Waltz. He was the one who accidentally added Goldberg to the group chat. The president told NBC News that Waltz, quote, learned a lesson and he's a good man. In an interview with Fox News yesterday, Waltz said he took responsibility for what happened.
It's embarrassing, right. Yes. We're going to get to the bottom of it. I just talked to Elon on the way here. We've got the best technical minds looking at how this happened. But I can tell you for 100%, I don't know this guy. I know him by his horrible reputation. Look, I take full responsibility. I built the group. My job is to make sure everything's coordinated.
We've got a team standing by to talk about this and more. We start things off with NBC News White House correspondent Aaron Gilchrist. Aaron, good morning. So what else are we hearing from the president about this? We know he likes to take the temperature of the media coverage. Is he still fully standing behind Mike Waltz this morning?
100% behind Mike Waltz and the rest of his national security team, to include the Secretary of Defense, as well as the directors of national intelligence and the CIA who testified on Capitol Hill yesterday. President Trump really, and I think the entire administration, has been trying to sort of shift the focus of this incident more to the outcome, what happened to the Houthis who were subject to this airstrike that was the point of this conversation that happened on the Signal messaging app, rather than focusing on what really has turned into a fiasco for this administration in terms of looking at how this sensitive information, which the president says was not classified, that's his understanding, the sensitive information was able to get out there to the general public in the way that it has at this point. I want you to hear a little bit more of what the president himself had to say about this incident and accountability.
There's no classified information, as I understand it. I don't think he should apologize. I think he's doing his best. It's equipment and technology that's not perfect, and probably he won't be using it again, at least not in the very near future.
We also heard Mike Waltz, the president's national security advisor, say again in that interview you showed a few seconds ago that there was no classified information in this conversation. He also went so far as to say that he would prefer The Atlantic not release more details, not release more contents of that chat, saying that the people who were supposed to be there believed that they were having a confidential exchange of policy ideas and exchange of information about some of the actions that the administration would be taking, Joe and Savannah.
So, Aaron, we've mentioned lawmakers are demanding answers, some demanding repercussions. Is the White House likely to heed calls, at least for any type of investigation, or take any kind of meaningful action?
We saw really aggressive back and forth from Democrats on Capitol Hill yesterday as they were questioning the director of national intelligence and the CIA director. This was supposed to be a hearing about really a different topic, but so much of it focused on this Signal chat conversation and the fact that the information there was able to get out to someone in the public. We know that there is at least one senator who's calling for Pete Hegseth, the defense secretary, and Mike Waltz, national security advisor, to resign. As far as an investigation goes, the Trump administration has not been using the word investigation. They have said, the president has said, the press secretary has said that they are looking into this incident, suggesting that Elon Musk and his DOGE team, these are technical experts who would be looking into how this person was added to the group chat, also the National Security Council and the White House counsel's office, the lawyers at the White House, are also looking into this incident. And there seems to be consensus, Joe and Savannah, that they don't want to see this happen again.
Aaron, real quick while we have you, we wanted to ask about an executive order the president signed yesterday. It's a directive that requires people to prove their citizenship when they register to vote. This is certainly going to face challenges in court, but how could it impact our elections?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. This is going to face challenges in court, Joe. This is something also that would represent really a major change in how elections are carried out in this country. The order orders the Election Assistance Commission to redo voter registration forms and require that voters prove their citizenship in order to register to vote. It also makes some changes to mail-in ballot deadlines and to election equipment in some instances. And the administration says that this is really designed to prevent non-citizens from being able to vote, which there's no evidence that that happens in significant numbers. When people register to vote, they do have to swear on that form that they are both citizens and that they are eligible to vote. The expectation from some legal experts is that, Joe and Savannah, this will end up in the courts because elections are primarily run, if you will, by Congress and the states. The president doesn't necessarily have any authority or power over elections and how they're carried out.
All right, Aaron Gilchrist, thank you so much.
Well, senior Trump national security officials are likely to face tough questions today about that group chat leak at a House hearing.
Yeah, already yesterday, top intelligence officials stonewalled and shifted blame as they were grilled by Democratic senators. It was part of an annual hearing about global threats, but that hearing was overshadowed by the security breach. Democrats pressed CIA Director John Ratcliffe and Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard for answers over their participation in the now leaked chat.
Director Ratcliffe, this was a huge mistake, correct?
No.
A national political...
Hold on.
No, you
Let me
hold
answer.
on. No,
The
Director
answer- the
Ratcliffe,
reason
I
I
asked
say
you a yes or
no-
no question, and now you hold on. A national political reporter
You can characterize it how you want.
was made privy
The White
to
House has
sensitive
made
information
clear
about
that there
imminent
was an
military
inadvertent
operations against a
mistake,
foreign terrorist
an inadvertent
organization.
mistake.
There's been no apology. There has been no recognition of the gravity of this error. And by the way, we will get the full transcript of this chain, and your testimony will be measured carefully against its content.
For more, let's bring in NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Julie Sirkin. Julie, good morning. So clearly things got heated at yesterday's hearing. What did senators try to dig into with their questions?
Yeah, it got super intense during that hearing. Remember, there are two parts to the worldwide threat hearing, the one that the public sees and then a closed session. And that is where most Republicans reserve their concerns and questions, of which there are many behind the scenes, to these national security and top defense officials that testified before this hearing. Now, what you did say play out in public was mostly from Democrats. You saw John Ossoff of Georgia kind of questioning John Ratcliffe there in that hearing. But you also heard many Democrats try to get to the bottom of what happened in the signal chat, whether the information was classified or not. They kept getting mixed answers from Tulsi Gabbard to John Ratcliffe to the other folks in that room. And Mark Warner, who was the top Democrat on that panel, really tried to drill down on this because he and many other Democrats and Republicans, by the way, were just stunned that this happened a mere 18 hours before this scheduled hearing was set to take place. Listen to this.
If this was a rank and file intelligence officer who did this kind of careless behavior, what would you do with them?
Senator, I'll reiterate that there was no classified material that was shared in that
And
signal.
if there's no classified in materials, share. And then if there's no classified materials, then you can't even answer the question whether you're on the chat.
They got extremely frustrated in this hearing as they kind of heard different things from all of the witnesses present, and they obviously got even more during that closed session afterwards.
So, Julia, what are congressional Democrats planning to do to try to get some answers about whether any classified information was in these texts and who was ultimately responsible? And is there any sign that any Republicans want to play ball and also look into this more?
Well, Republicans playing ball is pretty key here because Democrats are in the minority in the House and the Senate, of course, and so they don't have much power when it comes to getting to the bottom of this. There is a new letter out this morning from the Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer and top Democrats to President Trump expressing their anger and frustration at this, wanting to get to the bottom of this situation. But when you talk about Republicans, the top Republican in the Senate, John Thune, yesterday said that he expects some of his committees, the Senate Armed Services Committee, for example, who could call in Pete Hegseth, who is the Defense Secretary who was on that chain, that signal chat before the panel. He said that his committees will be holding hearings, will be trying to get to the bottom of this. It just depends how much the other side of Pennsylvania Avenue at the White House actually wants them to. I asked a number of Republicans yesterday if they want to see the full signal file, if they want to perhaps get some of these officials on the phone or in the room. They said that they do want to do so. They want to see everything. But of course, we'll see exactly what happens, whether it's a public hearing whether it's a conversation or a hand slap that happens in private, that still remains to be seen. But as you mentioned, those officials will be back on the Hill today, testifying before the House Intelligence Committee this time.
Julie, before we let you go, one other quick thing we want to ask you about this battle that's brewing between Republicans and federal judges. This is these judges who have issued rulings blocking parts of President Trump's agenda, like, for example, the one we've been talking a lot about with immigration, this current hold on deportations under the Alien Enemies Act. House Speaker Mike Johnson, he made some pretty aggressive comments yesterday floating the idea of eliminating federal courts. Let's play some of that.
We do have authority over the federal courts, as you know. We can eliminate an entire district court. We have power funding over the courts and all these other things. But desperate times call for desperate measures, and Congress is going to act. So stay tuned for that.
So, Julie, what are Republicans actually exploring here as they try to push their agenda past these judges and courts?
Yeah, House Speaker Mike Johnson threatening with the power of the purse. Of course, Congress does control the federal spending. They can, in theory, shutter an entire district court. But what's more likely to happen here is that the House will take up a series of bills, including Darrell Issas, who's a congressman from California, who essentially wants to neutralize or limit the power that district judges have over injunctions, meaning pausing any executive orders that come down from the Trump administration, of which there have been many over the last 2 months. Those pauses and stays as the courts review those actions further. The thing is, Elon Musk and some in the party want them to do more. He, remember, threw money behind members of Congress who floated impeaching these judges. That's probably not going to happen, but obviously Republicans want to be caught trying.
All right, Julie Sirkin, thank you very much.
Let's return to our top story, the ongoing fallout from that group chat leak with NBC News national security analyst Clint Waltz. Clint, good to have you with us. So let's just ask about this Signal messaging app that was used for the conversation. The president said yesterday a lot of people in the government and the military use it. Should it be used for these types of conversations? I mean, it's encrypted, but just how secure is it?
Yeah, a couple of things with that. They should not be using it, largely because it's on their personal phones. That would be the normal course of action. U.S. government generally doesn't put it on devices. They may in certain circumstances. That is yet to be seen. I think the second part of it is Signal is known as one of the better applications for securing communication. You might even remember DHS, CISA, and some others put out a warning last fall regarding Chinese hacking, and they actually said use encrypted applications such as Signal. That being said, it's a private company app. It's not controlled by the government. The U.S. government should always want control over all of its communications and have authority over all of that infrastructure. So they're relying on a third party that likely hasn't been vetted in the way most would for the U.S. government, the U.S. intelligence community in particular.
And Clint, you mentioned it's not on a government device because it can't be downloaded there and it's on personal phones. Why is that a concern? Why is that less secure?
It's less secure mostly for the unknown. You don't know where it is secured or how it is secured. You're basically going to a third party without proper vetting, hoping that it is more secure. At the same point, there have been warnings issued both in the U.S. government and around the world that foreign intelligence services do target the Signal application. They do that because they know it is a secure application and many people are trying to use it. So if you're a Russian, Iranian, Chinese, or other hacker group, that is a ripe target to go after because you would assume that very high-level people may be with confidential conversations, not just in government, but law firms, corporations. They would also be using it. That's a ripe field to get into if you can go and pick into those accounts.
Hey, Clint, what kind of problems could a leak like this have, not just on intelligence sharing within the government, but with our foreign allies, not to mention our foes, now that they know these conversations are happening at the highest levels on Signal?
Two dimensions to classified information. One, what is the classification level, which we always talk about, secret, top secret, and even beyond. But the second part is really how is it distributed? Information is only as secure as the distribution system it's on. When you see this, if you're an ally working with the United States, even if you're a source, maybe they're providing that information, whether there's labels on it or not, when sensitive information like that gets out into the open, everyone loses trust, and loss of trust equals loss of sharing. Loss of sharing equals lack of security. So that entire pendulum, those steps down, all impact U.S. government, U.S. intel community, and overall U.S. people in terms of their protection.
All right. Clint Waltz. Clint, thank you so much.
Let's stay on Capitol Hill. The future of Social Security was a hot topic yesterday as the man tapped by President Trump to run the agency was pressed on the administration's plans. While he says there won't be any cuts to benefits, many Americans are still anxious about the program's future. NBC News correspondent, Capitol Hill correspondent Ryan Nobles has the story.
Denise Parashak is a 70-year-old retired nurse from Pennsylvania who relies every day on her check from Social Security.
It's just something that we always counted on.
She's one of millions of Americans who paid into the system and now worries about the impact of potential changes from President Trump and Elon Musk.
Just looking at being able to provide 3 basic meals for ourselves, because if Social Security were eliminated, I mean, it's just, I can't even think about how terrible that would be.
Musk has openly attacked Social Security.
Social Security is the biggest Ponzi scheme of all time.
Enter Frank Bisignano, the former CEO of the financial services company Fiserv, tapped by Trump to run the program, promising no one's benefits will be impacted despite planned staffing cuts and office closures.
Are you willing to commit right now that you will put enough people back to work so they can do the job of delivering the benefits that Americans earned?
I will commit,
yes or no?
I will commit to have the right staffing to get the job done.
Congressional Republicans are on a mission to cut as much as $2 trillion in federal spending, a task that won't be easy without impacting programs like Social Security. Some expressing their fears at fiery town halls across America.
100% untrue.
Republicans insist they plan to focus on potential waste, fraud, and abuse and hope to automate some services.
I don't think there's a business in the private sector that's probably operating with an antiquated type of IT system that government agencies are. You know, why can't we upgrade those?
But for seniors like Denise, abrupt, tech-savvy changes could be a huge challenge.
Social Security and Medicare should never be on the chopping block at all.
And there are already reports of the agency's website crashing and long waits for people seeking help on the phone. A recent survey shows that 72% of Americans are concerned that Social Security will run out of funding in their lifetime.
Ryan, thank you. Vice President J.D. Vance says he is now planning to join his wife on her trip to Greenland later this week. Usha Vance had planned to travel to the Danish territory on a cultural visit before her husband announced his plans. The couple will now visit the U.S. Space Force base there to get a briefing on Arctic security issues. The move is perceived by some as a major escalation in President Trump's intentions to have Greenland become part of the United States. Officials in Greenland have called the visit disrespectful.
Well, West Virginia is now the first state to completely ban foods that contain certain artificial food dyes over health concerns. The ban will take place in schools first beginning this year and then across the state in 2028. NBC News senior correspondent Tom Costello has the details.
They're found in everything from chips and candies to baked goods, breakfast cereals, fruit juices, even medications. For decades, researchers have warned that artificial dyes can lead to serious behavioral issues in children. While not universally accepted, West Virginia has now become the first state to ban 7 artificial dyes and 2 preservatives. In schools this year, statewide in 2028, the governor writing West Virginia ranks at the bottom of many public health metrics, which is why there's no better place to lead the Make America Healthy Again mission. Marissa Salon is now weaning her 6-year-old off artificial dyes.
I would see him bouncing off the walls and just acting way out of his character, throwing huge temper tantrums and just not being able to control himself and being able to calm down after he would eat those foods.
The EU, Australia, and Japan already ban or regulate artificial dyes. The FDA banned red dye number 3 in January. A food industry trade group says West Virginians will have less access to affordable, nutritious, and convenient food and beverage choices. Meanwhile, more than 20 other states are considering similar bans. California already bans dyes in school meals. NYU nutrition expert Marion Nessel.
These dyes are there for cosmetic purposes. They don't have a health or a safety purpose. And public health advocates have wanted to get rid of them for decades.
Researchers say the evidence isn't concrete because it is unethical to test something on children when you believe it will likely hurt them. Back to you.
All right, Tom, thank you so much.
Texas could see some flooding tonight with storms coming in from the Gulf. For more details, let's take a look at your morning news now weather.
Meteorologist Michelle Grossman's with us. Hey, Michelle, good morning.
Good morning, guys. Yeah, this is going to be a big story over the next several days. We have a developing situation where we could see up to 15 inches of rain in parts of southern Texas. And that's because we have subtropical moisture moving in. So flood alerts already in place. We have a flood watch for Corpus Christi. That's sort of going to be the bullseye of where we're going to see some of this really heavy rain. Right now, things are looking okay. We're going to start to see this rain filling in, especially later on this evening, and be really heavy on Thursday with rainfall rates of 2-3 inches per hour. So this is what it looks like, that heavy rain developing across southern Texas, especially this evening. And we could see record rainfall amounts at Corpus Christi. Again, that will be the bullseye. Lots of reds and oranges and yellows indicating that really heavy rainfall. And this is Thursday. The rain and storms continue. That's going to raise the flood risk. We could have flash flooding. We have a moderate risk in spots and could see hourly rainfall rates of 2 to 3 inches per hour. Generally, we'll see 4 to 8 inches of rain, but could see 10, even 15 inches in some spots. Where you see that darker red, that's going to be the bullseye right off the Gulf where it's streaming right onto the coast. That's one big story. The second big story is rain, snow, and storms in the Pacific Northwest. We have a really rare event today where we could see a tornado, a brief tornado in portions of the Pacific Northwest. And certainly seeing thunderstorms are likely. So as we go throughout time here, we'll see this big cyclone move on shore. It's going to bring the chance for really heavy rain. That's going to continue into tomorrow as well, bringing the chance of flooding there. But 7 million people at risk from Seattle to Portland, Eugene. We don't see this often where we could see hail 2 inches or larger with any of these storms, winds gusting up to 60 miles per hour, and could see a brief tornado or two. Heavy rainfall, especially along the coast from Seattle to Medford down to Eureka, where you see those darker colors. That's where we're expecting the highest amounts of rain. And we're going to see a lot of snow in some spots, too. The highest mountains could see 8 inches of snow in some spots. So the third big story, lots of weather happening today. We do have that warmth holding on, record-breaking heat across the west into the plains. 91 degrees today in Henderson, Nevada. That's 17 degrees above what is typical for this time of year. We broke some records yesterday. We broke some records on Monday. We'll do that once again today. And you guys, we're going to see 90 degrees in Tucson. That is 12 degrees above what is typical for this time of year. Also warm in the plains and into the southeast. Back to you.
71 in Seattle. That's like June, July weather there.
I know. Isn't it crazy?
Thanks, Michelle. Appreciate it.
Well, it was exactly 1 year ago this morning that a cargo ship slammed into the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore, killing 6 people as it collapsed into the water below. You can see that moment of impact right here. The crew says they lost the ability to steer that massive container ship after losing power as it was leaving the port of Baltimore.
Crews are now building a new bridge as the NTSB's investigation goes on. That probe is already raising questions about possible issues with the bridge before the deadly incident. NBC News correspondent Jay Gray joins us now from Baltimore with a closer look. Jay, good morning.
Joe, Savannah, good morning to you. As the sun comes up, you can see just behind us here the remnants of the Key Bridge, what's left from that tragedy a year ago. A constant reminder for people who live and work here. NTSB investigators say they expect to file a full report on the crash this fall, but they are warning, as you talk about, Joe, that there were issues with the Key Bridge before the tragedy. A lack of required inspections, the agency says, would have alerted operators to the collapse risk that was nearly 30 times the acceptable threshold for critical and essential bridges here in the U.S. As the cargo ship Dolly slams into a pier supporting the Key Bridge.
The bridge is gone. Holy.
It rips apart not only the massive structure, but the lives of 6 families. 6 members of a road crew killed as the bridge suddenly collapsed beneath them.
To the victims of this tragedy and their loved ones, all of our hearts are broken. We feel your loss. We're thinking of you, and we will always be thinking of you.
It took more than 3 months to pull the ship from the scene and the wreckage from the water, crippling one of the busiest shipping lanes in the United States. And now, a year later, a shocking report from the NTSB claiming Maryland authorities ignored national guidelines calling for vulnerability assessments on the bridge.
Had they done that, the collapse could have been prevented.
The Maryland Transportation Authority, responding to that report, says the tragedy is, quote, the sole fault of the Dolly and the gross negligence of her owners and operators who put profits ahead of safety. As crews build a new bridge, Maryland's governor stresses it will be safe.
We are going to make sure that we are going to get this bridge built on time and on budget. And it is going to make sure that it leads up to all industry standards on safety.
The rebuild has a target completion date of 2028 at a cost of just under $2 billion. Right now, land and water surveys are continuing. They're ongoing here at the site. Joe, Savannah, they expect to really begin construction in earnest sometime by the end of the year.
All right, Jay, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.